When you have a driver who hasn't won a race leading the points, and a Spec 2 driver third overall, you know you're in for an interesting season. 3 rounds done, and the very different circuits of Interlagos, Nürburgring, and Tsukuba have produced 3 very different races. To continue the trend of the unusual, one of Silverstone's lesser-used layouts plays host to today's event. The lack of popularity has thrown some unfamiliar names up at the top, and we'll see which of them capitalizes as we get ready to watch Round 4 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Young. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Adam, Silverstone is known to most race fans, but maybe not this version.
Yeah, this one's quite a bit different. I mean, a lot of people understand the larger version that used to be a World War II airfield that quickly got adapted for racing use only a few years after the war. And then as the track has evolved, a few layouts have kind of sprung up in the middle of it, and this one today is the international layout. It's going to comprise of 10 turns. It's only going to be 3.619 kilometers or 2.249 miles in length here today. A lot of time on throttle, but there's a couple of real tight corners that are going to catch these SRFs off guard just a little bit here for today. Going to have to be careful getting the power down. What better way to experience, though? Take a lap around in the GSRC SRF.
Alright, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Silverstone. Cops probably won't see many passes because it's incredibly quick and there's very little braking on your way in. If anything, most drivers will be worried about balancing the car with the lift throttle oversteer being an ever-present threat. Try to get the power down as soon as you can without bouncing over the grass and AstroTurf on the exit, and then you're headed towards Maggots and Beckett's. However, with this being the international layout, you won't be traveling fully through this set of S's. It's got some really tricky braking that's likely to catch a few drivers out as you dive off the main circuit. Getting back on the gas early will be important here because it's a pretty long run on your way down to the next hairpin. The draft might come into play a little bit, but really most of it will simply be making sure you carry your momentum. I expect the vast majority of pass attempts to happen in this part of the course. What's awkward here is the braking takes you across the track, so if a driver makes a late defense, it can sometimes cause 2 people to tangle. It's a really late apex around this tight right-hander, but it will lead you back onto the GP course. Passes will be tough from here on out. About your only good opportunity is on the run from Bridge to Priory. But yet again, miscommunication is so easy into this corner that you've got to keep your head up whether you're attacking or defending. A driver might dive to your left at the last moment and plow into you just when you pick the same side. You're now into the technical final section, where it's mostly slow, tight turns. Brooklands is one of the slowest, but it also blends right back into Luffield. It'll be incredibly important that you don't come into here too shallow or have to lift on your way out. With it taking you back onto the pit straight, you'll gain a fair bit of speed. From there, all you need to do is minimize your steering input on your way through Woodcote, and you've now hopefully finished a lap around Silverstone. They see a lap around the international version, in case you've never seen it here at Silverstone. Now, the Weekend Warriors this season are brought to you by the Hallett Race Shop. Hallett Race Shop is located at the Hallett Racetrack near Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're a full-service SRF shop, an authorized customer service rep for SCCA Enterprises, and owners of the Hallett Racetrack. You can find more information at hallettracing.net. Big thanks to them for coming on board this season. But before we get to the qualifying, we've got, of course, the championships to go through. Now, you might notice something interesting here in the Spec 1, and I talked about it in the pre-race. Elson and Gaspers, they're up at the top. And look at that, Donald Fitter. He's actually a Spec 2 driver, but because he's in the top 5, we figured we might as well include him in here. Sadro and Jerry McAreevy round out the top 5 overall. Jerry moving up 2 spots to join them. What about the Spec 2 championship? I mean, we already know who's leading that over there, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, Federer's doing his best to run away with it right now and showing up on that S1 leaderboard. Bob Kern, though, continues to make moves. He moved up a few spots last week, moving up another few spots here for this week. He's sitting at 2nd on the leaderboard. Last week he was 4th. Third's going to be Jeff Jacobson. Christopher Patterson does drop a spot, and Dominique Barreau showing up now at 5th in the standings as well. So, you know, Joe, once you get past Donald Federer, racing pretty tight in those S2 standings.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that's going to play out today because there could be some good points on hand. In fact, let's look at what today includes with the race details. As mentioned, we're on round 4. Now, they get 3 drop weeks this season, so that could help the likes of David Gaspers, as he's going to be missing today, and I think he said a few others this season. The cars are open setup, but you can see right there, 35% fuel compared to what the real cars can have means that this 40-minute race will include a single pit stop. Now, the points are actually rationed, so even though there's fewer cars here today, you still have to finish in the upper half of the field to try and get a really good chunk of them, because basically last place will always get 25 points no matter how many cars show up. Incident penalties include 10 incident points, lose you 3 points on the championship board, and they have a single fast repair waiting for them if they run into trouble, get any sort of damage. This track, though, not as known as being as aero sensitive, so we might not see as many drivers use that spare car. Looking at qualifying, though, a name that I'm pretty sure we've seen in the GSRC broadcast previously, but not in a while. Sven Demmel currently our fastest. And then another name next to him on the front row, Brando Valeriano, is currently in second place. And then from there on, we start to see more familiar faces.
Yeah, you know, you got Jason Perry back there, Steven Elson right now sitting 5th on the leaderboard, Daniel Sadro. But you know, 22 cars in the field today, a few names that we haven't heard of in a while. And so that's going to definitely mix things up, I think, in the point standings. We could revisit those point standings here for next week. But it's also a great opportunity for some of those guys that have kind of been on their luck just a little bit to try to get some good points here for today. But as you mentioned, Joe, with the way they ration the points, they really got to have good days. And you got the wild cards of Sven and Brando out there that could steal a lot of those good points away, depending on how things play out. Another thing you mentioned, Joe, about the aero sensitivity here. One thing I'm noticing here in the difference between practice and qualifying speeds. In the practice, some of them are drafting and everything else. It's worth a good couple tenths of a second a lap. But at the same time, once the field breaks up a little bit, they will, you know, that'll become less dependent. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But definitely a little bit of a wider circuit than what we saw last week in Tsukuba.
Certainly. Hopefully it'll give them some chances to pass, though. Some awkward corners. I know when I was trying to get the lap guide ready for this one, Adam, it took me a few tries to get that entry into Maggots off to the shortcuts through the course. That is a nasty little braking zone.
It is. There's a few other ones out there too, and you're watching Steven Elson right there. That's not the first time that I've seen Steven Elson lose the back end through certain portions of this racetrack. So these cars, with the way this is flat and everything else, these cars really want to be unstable under braking. So these guys got to be careful, especially through those tricky braking zones.
Fitter currently leads our Spec 2 race qualifying. He's sitting in 7th. We were wondering last race on whether or not Steve Elson could continue his first 2 podiums. Well, the answer was no. He wound up 6th last week. So sadly, he only has his first 2, but he's still leading the points, and his main rival in the points is not here today. Sitting 5th in the qualifying, the number 56 car does look like he could wind up still up at the top after all is said and done. I guess we'll find out in 40 minutes' time. It's getting a little cloudy out there, not too unusual for the English weather, but what are we looking at temperature-wise for the track, Adam?
Yeah, temperature-wise here, you know, with those clouds, it's keeping the track temperature only down to about 80 degrees, so you know, that'll help out these guys just a little bit through those tight corners, especially once it gets heat in the tires. So weather, I don't think it's going to play too big of a role here for us today, unless we see the clouds move out, we get a little bit of sun, because in this type of scenario, in true British weather history, we will see one part of the track be nice and sunny and the other part of the track cloudy, and that's only if we do actually see some sun here today.
5 minutes left to go in qualifying. This is your pole sitter still, Sven Demmel. As he crosses and actually improves to a 34-1, making it half a second between himself and Brando Valeriano. Now, we've been watching this whole season on the iRacing Esports Network, and we continue to do so here today. If you've been enjoying that, make sure and subscribe. All you got to do is go to their YouTube page, click the big red subscribe button, and you'll get all of IESN races in your YouTube feed. So we're seeing some wide gaps up at the front. It's 5/10 back to Brando, and then another 2/10 back to Daniel Sadro in P3. It's only at that point that you start to get within about 1/10 of one another between Sadro and McAreevy.
Yeah, you can definitely tell we've got a few guys that have this location here figured out. So, that'll not help the fact that they might try to break up just a little bit through the middle part of the race. We saw that at Tsukuba last week too, though. It seemed like you had your bunch of smaller packs more than anything else. And I think we might see a little bit more of the same here for today, but of course a little bit more drafting involved.
Wow, McAreevy trying his best to catch Sadro. There is now 1/1000th between himself and the number 51. And that last lap of improving to a 34.9 for Jerry. Right on board with Brando, second place. And unfortunately does not improve that time by his best at a 34.7. Has some work to do to try and get up to Sven. Sven hailing from the DH Club, coming to join us. And Brando from Iberia, so yet more of the European crowd coming over to show that they can certainly handle these diminutive, mostly American cars, we should note.
Yeah, I don't think you see too many Spec Racer Fords overseas, but you see quite a bit over here. There was a race at COTA. I didn't get a chance to go to it, but I heard they had something like 50 SRFs there at COTA toward late in the season last year, so I thought that was pretty cool. But pretty common out here, and but still, these things can be a handful, especially here in iRacing.
Absolutely. Chris Murakami at the dizzying heights of P8 in his qualifying. He's given a tow to Stevie Ray as they cross. 35.4s not improve for Murakami, and Stevie Ray does use the draft to try and get himself a little higher. 35.7 slots him into P12 now. Surprised to see Juracek this far down the order. He tends to be qualifying within the top 3. Last lap did not count for him. He's down in 10th right now.
Yeah, and looking at his practice speeds as well, I need to see what kind of, how many laps he was able to run in practice. Looks like he's actually only able to get 2 in practice. But even then, it still seems like maybe this track just isn't agreeing with him. He's definitely off the pace all the way around.
Brando's improved now down to a 34.5, but it still leaves him 4/10 to make up. Sadro has actually gone forward slightly as well, a 34.7. Is the temperature potentially going down on the track? It's gone down 1 degree, so I don't know if it's had that dramatic of an effect. Elson crossing the line. Let's see what this lap holds for him. A 35.1 is just about a couple hundredths off of his fastest time. Right on board with Jerry McAreevy. Currently sitting on the outside of row 2. They're starting to run out of time to get some laps in. You can see some cars there off to the right diving into pit lane have decided they've got enough. And this last lap for McAreevy, a 34.7. Does that bump him up? No, unfortunately it does not, even though it's his fastest lap time thus far.
We just got Elson out there trying to lay down a good time. I thought I saw Federer. He might be trying to get back around before the checker comes out and maybe try to get another lap in. Sven Demmel actually looks like he might be trying to see if he can improve upon his time here. Coming to the line.
Get one more lap to try and do so if he does not. And he does not, actually, although he's very consistent. 2 laps in the 34.1s doesn't bode well for those around him in terms of race pace. Bob Kern currently down in 17th. He crosses the line, but it's a 37.5 for him. Checkered flag comes out, so that's going to be it for qualifying. Let's see who's getting ready to cross. Steve Elson, our current points leader. Let's see if he can go higher than 6. He's on the outside of the 3rd row, out through Woodcote. Across the line, it is not an improvement for him, sadly. Our Spec 2 pole sitter, Donald Fitterer, sitting 7th overall, is going to abandon his final lap. Doesn't feel the need to try and go again. Then we've got McAreevy over the line. A 34.7. His last lap was his fastest one. This one, not going to improve a 35 flat. Let's see, this is the last chance for Miroslav Juracek to try and make sure that he starts a little bit higher than the 5th row. Again, highly unusual for him. And a 35.3 puts him in 9th place only. So only 1 spot up. Valeriano, unfortunately, does not set a faster time. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, no, go. That's fine. I was almost exactly what I was getting ready to talk about.
I think Bob Kern's going to be our last one. Still down in 17th. Trying to find that last little bit of speed around Woodcote. What does the number 206 have? Nothing faster. That's a 36.5 for him. And it rounds out our starting order. All right, let's go through your grid for today's race. Round 4, newcomers Van Demmel will be on the pole. Brando Valeriano will be P2. Then the inside of row 2 will be Daniel Sadro. Jerry McAreevy starts in 4th place. Jason Perry will be behind them on the inside of row 3 in 5th. Stephen Elson will be starting P6. Donald Fitterer starts in the 7th position. And then Adam Bradshaw, both of them, Spec 2, will be starting in 8th, next to each other on track. Chris Murakami starts 9th, and Miroslav Juracek got bumped back down to 10th in the end.
Yeah, look at that time difference between Murakami and Miroslav there. Wow, that's close on that finish. Ryan Sorrell, though, he's going to be in the inside of row 6. Alongside him be Edward Doherty. C-Love sitting there in 13th position alongside Stevie Ray. Jim McGill in 15th. Michael Shaw, in 16th. Bob Kern, 17th. Tom Gradwell in 18th. Jeff Jacobson in 19th. And Zachary LeVay in 20th. I'll go and round it out here. Joe Ian Wilson and Gary Wobolt will be the 2 rounding out the field here for today of 22 cars.
And all 22 managed to get times in, so everyone set at least 1 clean lap as we wait for the Porsche pace car to lead them away for round 4, the pace lap. Again, it is 100 points for a win here in this series, and the podium has 90 for second, 83 for third, everything on down from there, apportioned to 25 points for the car in last place. As we look at them all gridding up. Now, passing zones, that's a question mark for me. It's been a long time since I've actually raced this circuit, and even then it was in the Skippy and not these cars. What are you thinking here, Adam? What are the most popular spots that you expect to see people try one?
Oh, that's going to be a tough one also. I mean, I want to say Lulfield on the exit of that might be an interesting area. Probably trying to get into Brooklands, so that Brooklands-Lulfield combo. It really, anything that you have, you got a couple of long straights that I think will be probably the areas we'll see some drafting going in. But once again, you got to be careful of those braking zones and watch them be, upset cars, really.
All right, taking off on their way towards Cops. It's one of those faster corners. Wonder if we'll see any drivers lose the rear of the car. Trying to swing it through here as quick as they can. They have plenty of paved runoff, but you certainly don't want to do it here when they come around for the first lap and you have a whole field of cars barreling down on you. We are on round 4 today of the Weekend Warriors. Another big thank you goes out to the Hallett Race Shop for sponsoring this season. Again, if you want to check them out, you can find them at HallettRacing.net, especially if you're in the Oklahoma area and you want to go racing. You can go check out their track. They have one of the I need to go and double check on what the wording is, but it's one of the national SCCA races for the Spec Racer is going to be taking place there. I believe there's only 11 rounds in the season that they're doing those. So very special for those at the Hallett crew, having them show up for that. And definitely glad to have them on board with us to give some real world credence to these drivers out today. Coming through the shortened part of the circuit. If you've ever watched the MX-5 World Tour and seen the southern version, well, they're basically going through that part backwards right now.
You know, I'll mention that one of the biggest jokes today has been how many cones are we going to see knock off? But unfortunately, Amjad wasn't able to get the cone counter done in time. So if you see any cones lying around, you can write it down yourself, keep a little tally marks, and let us know what you think in the comments of the YouTube video.
Well, there we go. Let's someone tell iRacing to get an SDK thing that sends us when a cone is hit.
Yes.
Then we could actually have Amjad have a cone counter. We'll see. I think they've got other things on priority as they come through the last portion of the circuit through Brooklands into Luffield. Of course, your pace car going to give control to Sven Demmel. What has he got underneath him? Both he and Brando new, at least to this broadcast series, not necessarily new to GSRC. Waiting for the green flag. He's got control. Green flag is out. It's a bit of a checkup in the mid-pack as everybody tries to get close up behind. Looks like the front is relatively even as they come up to Copse, but is this going to be clean into the corner? They all swing it in there at nearly 100 miles an hour. Way wide for Sven Demmel,
though. Way out there. Still on the gas, though, but he's going to lose a few spots.
Brando takes advantage of it. Jerry McAreevy slots into second place. Don't forget Daniel Sadro as well. Now we got cars actually flipping. That was Bradshaw. Go back to the replay in a bit, but wow, that got messy in a hurry. So as they come to the shortened version, it's starting to sort itself out a little bit up front. Brando leading, McAreevy second. Sadro third, and then you got a battle for fourth with Perry trying to go up the inside, almost outbreaks himself into Sadro. To the outside of him is our pole sitter Sven Demmel trying to come back at him. He gets the launch off the corner. He might be able to claim this one back, but he's got to get through bridge first. Pulls it around the outside. That gives him the inside to Priory. And Sven Demmel solidifies fourth place. Now he can set his sights ahead. What a start, though, for Brando Valeriano, finding himself leading this race from second place on the grid.
Yeah, McAreevy, you know, doesn't look too bad either. I mean, he's up a spot. Daniel Sadro being actually the one that's actually down a spot. I think he kind of lost that spot there in the confusion. But Joe, I think we got that replay on tap for that first lap incident, and it took out quite a few guys that have damage.
Absolutely. That did start with Bradshaw. We're going to see here, he was side by side with Juracek, who was also involved, and he's just going to clip the curb, and from there, he is along for the ride.
Yeah, as soon as that car hooked back the opposite direction, the momentum just carried him right over. He ends up on his wheels. He's able to drive around the pit road, but Miroslav being involved in that, Ryan Sorrell being involved in that, Stevie Ray almost, in fact, right along here with Stevie. You're going to have a heck of a view here. See Bradshaw losing it, going upside down right on the left side of the screen.
That was Doherty also involved. We're going to see Sorrell's perspective. Hello. Little bumps and bangs, but Sorrell gets it back going. And he's actually running 14th, so despite going underneath the car, not too bad from here on out. I suspect he might be taking some repairs once he gets into pit lane. But we've jumped back up to the leaders. McAreevy not letting Brando get away from him. Sven Demmel clearly getting a little bit impatient now as well, as he's all over the back of Daniel Sadro, but still sitting in fourth.
This will be a good opportunity for him to try to get around him, though. Use that draft, be able to get some momentum going. And coming to the start-finish line, I think that might be when he starts trying to tuck out just a little bit. Not quite, but wow, he's got that front nose right underneath his car.
It was actually giving him a bump draft. Now he's got the shot off of Kopp's corner. He slots to what will be the inside of this second braking zone. Sadro has no way to fight it. He just lets him have third place. Ooh, almost locking up the brakes though. Sven Demmel clearly in a hurry.
Well, Sven showed that he's got a couple of tenths of a second on some of these guys here, or a couple of tenths a lap, excuse me, on these guys. So be looking for him to try to make some moves. But here we go, battle for the lead.
McAreevy looking around the outside as they come through Abbey. Back onto the main circuit.
Under.
Yeah, it just doesn't quite work out for him, but look at how close he is now. This is the closest we've seen all race. The number 67 taking a peek to the inside, backs out of it as they come through bridge. We don't need to go to it. I can report Jim McGill nearly had a spin. He lost multiple positions, has fallen down to 15th back in the mid-pack. And already Sven Demmel has closed the gap to McAreevy. We've now got a 3-car fight for the lead. The pace that we saw from the number 23 car, to me, says he's likely to be the fastest of this group, and not sure how long he's going to wait behind them before he tries to take the top spot away.
I think McAreevy has to be conscious here that he's racing against 2 guys right now that aren't going to be racing for the championship. So, don't want to lose too much time sitting there fighting with those guys while you've got Daniel Sadro right back there.
And I tell you what, Demmel seems to have that first corner figured out, but maybe not this one. He goes a little bit deep. He blew by McAreevy out of Kopp's, but coming into Maggots, completely botches it. Here comes Jerry McAreevy looking to go the long way around of these fast left-hand kinks, but it's going to switch back to the inside for him once they hit Abbey. All this battling has lost them time on Brando. Inside belongs to McAreevy. Demmel tries to carry the speed off of it, but it doesn't work out for him. Exciting stuff, but certainly playing into the hands of the number 46. The battle for second slows up this second pack. Down through Brooklands and into Luffield. This is where I want to keep half an eye on Sven Demmel. 2 laps in a row, we've seen him just fire that car out of Kopp's like it was shot out of a cannon. Whatever he's doing compared to the other drivers around him, it is working way better for him.
Yeah, and he's got that part figured out. If he could just stop making just small mistakes here and there, I mean, he'll be able to catch back up to Ballerino in no time. But Ballerino right now, he's looking in his rearview mirror. He's seeing those guys go at it. He's like, keep going at it, boys. Because every time that he sees anybody trying to make a move, that's another couple tenths a second he's gaining.
Had a little bit of a run, but this time it's McAreevy who makes the mistake. And a bobble behind them that you saw from Sadro. It's going to be wheel to wheel again. We'll jump back to some of the other battles in the mid-pack in a moment. Oh, and another little bit too much curb for McAreevy. Almost lost it in a straight line. They break for the hairpin. Last time it was McAreevy to the inside. This time he's looking for the switchback. It doesn't look like there's just enough speed for that. Meanwhile, behind them, Steve Elson and Chris Murakami have been in a nice little fight. We got a replay on a passes. It actually looks like this was a defense, I should say. Oop. Back live again. Didn't have the replay that we thought we did. You can see how close Elson is, though. 2 podiums and a 6th place. He's sitting in 7th. I'm sure he'd like more points than this, though, if he could find his way past the peppermint-colored car of Chris Murakami. forward with Steve now. He's within the slipstream. Not sure if he's going to have quite enough straight, though. You can see ahead of them, that is Jason Perry as well. If Steve manages to get by Chris, Jason not far enough up the road that he could feel totally safe, especially if Steve has got as good a pace as it's looking like here. Oh, and there's a battle for third happening right now as McAreevy is under attack from Daniel Sadro, who got to the inside of him. Meanwhile, on screen, side-by-side action into the hairpin, and Steve gets it done around the outside of Chris. Oh no, Stevie Ray falling down the order, and I think he might have had a friend turned around with him.
Stevie had himself a pretty good race going too after avoiding that lap 1 incident. Looks like it's at Michael Shaw right there.
Both of them had their own independent errors of each other. Shaw just outbrakes himself. Stevie Ray loses control with the rear coming around on entry. They got very lucky that they didn't hit each other.
Oh, yeah. You see right there on your screen, though, Sven Demmel, fastest lap of the race so far. He is coming on Brando Vallerini.
I wonder if Sven's maybe going to use the pit stops to get by him, or if he'll try and do it on track, because we're coming up to the pit window opening up here. 10 minutes into this race. Never mind.
He was able to get on the hammer hard there, while Brando wasn't. He's going for the lead now. He's not going to have to wait for the pit stops.
Just amazing stuff from Sven Demmel, but he's not done with it. Here comes Brando using the slipstream to stay with him. Thought about a pass, didn't stick his nose in through the hairpin, so he'll have to settle for second, at least for the moment. Oh, and I think C-Love has had an issue. Looks like a few more cones have fallen by the wayside.
One bent up rear end on an SRF.
I didn't hit anything.
Oh, okay. Seems like
unless it got...
here's the replay. There's the cones.
Might have gotten clipped from behind. It was awful close with the car behind him, but as we come back live, he's actually fallen all the way to 20th. And all of this, we've had no DNFs. Juracek and Bradshaw both took their spare cars, and they're still on the lead lap. We have had our first pitter, Steve Elson, comes in.
So I went back to looking at that C. Love incident, and Tom Gradwell was the one that, at least the sim just thinks that it got into the back of him. So he's got some front end damage now, and he's going to be under attack here after he moves up to 9th from Ryan Sorrell, who's moved up to 10th, and Jim McGill in 11th. So these guys that had problems earlier on in the race that are trying to recover now, and you know, a lot of them do have a little bit of damage, so that draft will be playing a big role for them.
There you see our top 5 on screen. Demmel, Brando, McAreevy, Sadro, and Perry, all running within about 5 seconds of one another. One mistake could be costly. Elson's returned to the track. So we got a pass on screen. This is Gradwell and Sorrell. Sorrell down to the inside. And I think he's got it done.
And you see the damage has now reset itself on Gradwell, so we'll see if maybe his aerodynamics get a little bit better as well. It sometimes happens when there's contact, but not really contact.
Yep, I think he got away with that one. Just managing to avoid it. Oh, and Sven Demmel is in. Sven Demmel taking an early stop. Interesting. Currently, our highest pitter is Steve Elson, but that will probably change now. The number 23 comes down to his pit stall. Elson came out actually in a little bit of traffic, unfortunately, so I'm not sure if this strategy will work out well for him. Did Sven actually miss his pit stall, though? I think...
just a touch, I think.
Well, he was forward for a bit.
Yeah.
He waited a while. This actually might lose him the lead.
Oh, I think it's definitely going to lose him the lead. I think the bigger question is going to be whether or not it loses him the lead so much they loses touch with Valeriano. I mean, that's got to be worth at least a couple of seconds right there. Now, he's got the pace, but he's going to click off some laps, and right now, immediately, he's already finding himself in traffic right away when he gets back out on track.
That's Doherty. He's trying to overtake. Meanwhile, we're watching a battle just behind him. Steve Elson gets by Gary Wohlbolt to demote another car. That puts Elson into 14th. Sven is our highest pitter. To give you an idea of the time that was lost, Elson was 34 seconds from cone to cone. Demmel was 38 seconds, nearly 39. So as we watch Sadro and McAreevy work a little bit together to find some extra pace. They're currently running second and third since Demmel's now pitted. They got promoted up one position each. Although Sadro not content to sit back there, he's going to pull it alongside. Now he lifts and lets McAreevy stay in front of him. Oh, McAreevy, though, that is not going to keep him in front. Bounding over the curbs and gravel. That might have actually damaged his car. He went airborne at one point. That was Perry you saw going by after that. Let's watch the replay. This is from on board. It's a case where it's a good thing it's not really physically happening to the driver, because I think he would probably have a few back problems after this one.
Yeah, it was just a classic case of the injury messing him up. It was that almost that half jump he took when he transitioned back to the concrete that I think's damaged his nose just a touch. But yeah, that's not the way McAreevy wanted to do that. He did the wise thing and just taking that chicane though to be able to get back out on track, and thankfully kind of limited his losses. But losses were still significant nonetheless.
You can see he's staying right in the tire tracks of Jason Perry. But so far, McAreevy's not looked very strong coming out of Kopp's corner. He's going to try anyway, sticking his nose to the inside. Perry does not defend. But can he get him with an over-under potentially? McAreevy through the corner, keeps his speed up, but Perry keeps his speed up better. Instead, thinks he'll work with him. Gives him a nice little bump draft. That moves Jerry back up into third. What this has done is given Daniel Sadro the chance. Oh, and Jerry McAreevy screws up turn 2 yet again. Perry's going to come back at him. It's the outside here, but it switches back to the inside for the hairpin. Little lockup of the brakes from Spider-Man, but he's through. And as that's happening in the mid-pack, poor Steve Elson finds himself dealing with battling cars. Doherty and Jim McGill swapping positions, all while Elson says, I'm going to take 2 of these and be done with this mess. Nicely done by the number 56. That gets him up to 12th now. He has been trying to chase down Demmel. The gap between those two is about 3.2 seconds. They're both our highest pitters, though Demmel, we know, had a slow pit stop due to missing his pit stall. And we're basically waiting between Brando, Daniel, and Jason, as well as Jerry, to see how many of them will be able to jump Sven.
And to give you an idea of Sven's times here, the last lap, we'll see what he runs here this lap, but the last lap before this was 34.7, and Zachary LeVay, who you just saw him pass, was a 37.0. So he is doing his best to make ground through these guys. But still, I mean, every time he passes somebody, he's losing a little bit of time. So that's going to be more time that Brando is going to have later on in this race after he makes his stop.
And that was actually faster than Brando's last lap by a bit of a margin. So he is, like you said, making up the ground. It's just a question of how much. And I think we had another problem this time with Tom Gradwell. It was in the braking for maggots. This just is a hellish corner in these cars. I think that's what, about the fifth time we've seen someone just on his own let the rear come around there.
Yeah, I think fourth or fifth, yeah. Just either way, very, very tough. The rear end definitely losing a lot of grip. I mean, probably a combination between that and guys just simply trying to get back on the gas a little too soon. Very, very deceptive of a corner. I mean, you think it's okay to get on the gas, but it's not.
Meanwhile, we've jumped back to Elson chasing down Gradwell. This is for position. And Elson is dropping off more and more from Demel. Was 3.5 seconds, has since grown to nearly 5. Good run down the front stretch. Gradwell just going to hold left. He's not going to fight it. Elson swiftly through the inside, up into Copse. And that moves Steve up to 11th. Haven't seen any of our leaders pit yet, and we're down to 19 minutes left to go. We got another 10 minutes in this pit window before we expect anybody in. There's our leader, Brando Valeriano. Started on the front row. Managed to get a better run out of the first corner. And essentially gifted him the lead. And he hasn't looked back since. He's fended off a few comers. Jerry McAreevy had a try, didn't work out. His gap currently at about 3 seconds to the current P2 car, which is Daniel Sadro. Sadro, you can see, having to overtake a little bit of lap traffic. From there, our closest battle within the top 5 is for third place. Perry and McAreevy, who I'm pretty certain are somewhat working together to try and get what speed they can to stay up with the top 2.
Yeah, a little bit of that old bump draft and everything else, and while that's going on, we can move Sven up another spot. He's going back up to 8th position. He's the only car on the racetrack still running 34s. He's absolutely tearing through this field.
Unbelievable pace. And we got a couple more takers. Doherty pits, Gradwell pits. Don't think anybody else has come in, though. You see the New Yorker getting a little bit of fuel, probably getting a spare car, I imagine, because he was a part of that big incident on lap 1. He returns out in P18, getting the car going once again. Back to the battle for third. Perry still leads McAreevy. That is Woolbolt ahead of them. They're now getting ready to lap that car, but I thought Woolbolt was going to come into the pits. He's just pulling over to let these two through. So, somewhat of a calm race now that we've seen most of the drivers get the mistakes out of their system. Fewer and fewer spins happening. Ryan Sorrell gonna take himself in for a stop. Jeff Jacobson follows him from immediately behind. No other takers behind them. Certainly getting some split strategies. We saw that at Tsukuba as well with these shorter circuits. It opens up the possibilities of when and where you want to take your stop. McAreevy. Oh, and is he actually going for a pass this time? He ducks to the inside of Bridge, but this is going to be the outside of the next corner. Perry lets him through, and he's not going to fight it.
There's no point in fighting that at that point. You're just going to lose time. So, I mean, better just try to ride in his wake for a little bit.
They work their way through Luffield. I can report that Brando stays out. Sadro stays out. What about these two? Both of them not ready to pit quite yet. Got a little bit of a battle happening in 11th. This is between Adam Bradshaw and Michael Shaw. I believe Bradshaw is either third or fourth in the Spec 2 championship. I see a 342 number on Jim McKill, but I'm not sure if that means he's a Spec 2 driver, if we've started a Spec 3 class all of a sudden. Actually, McGill's heading in for his stop. Right on board with Shaw. Our leader in the Spec 2 class, for fans of that Spec 2 championship, is Donald Fitterer. It's been another season where the Spec 2 points leader has essentially been running away with things. The number 211 car has been untouchable compared to his compatriots, but he's, well, he had a companion for a moment, but the cone seems to have found its way home.
Yeah, Donald, I mean, just the pace he's shown here early in the season has just been incredible, and I don't see it letting up at all. I mean, he's by far the strongest Spec 2 car out there today and has been for most of the season here so far. I mean, sitting there running 6, and really, if a few things had gone his way a little bit better, he could be up there easily in the top 5 this afternoon.
Boy, you want to hear how much of a charge Demmel is on? I'm looking at the last laps. Brando ran a 35.7, Demmel a 34.3. This is incredible pace, as lap traffic might be part of what's slowing down the number 46 car. It's Tom Gradwell trying to let him through. Oh, and something happened to McAreevy. I think I know which corner is Jerry's least favorite on this layout. For who knows how many times this has been now, he finds himself just not on the right line and once again bounding over the grass before he returns and loses a little bit of time to Jason Perry. Still waiting on a number of drivers to come in. Demmel, our highest pitter. Elson, the second highest pitter, who was within about 3 seconds before, is up to 8 seconds back from the number 23. Our points leader just does not have anything to answer to our pole sitter for today.
Here comes Jason Perry down pit road.
This is the first of our leaders other than Demmel. Finally take one.
This will be a good measuring stick to see how far Demmel comes ahead of Jason here.
Sven is, he's going to be well past, actually. Sven's already coming across the start-finish line right now, and Perry just hit his pit stall. There goes Sven by. Perry's still stationary, and now he's finally out. Yeah, that is a huge, huge gap. That extra time in the pit stall for Sven really meant nothing, it seems like. No matter what, the pace of this number 23 is untouchable. down to 11 minutes left to go. Our leader, Brando, essentially just working with... Oh, and Elson. Elson jumped Perry. But how long? Because Perry's got a nice little run. This is coming up to the Abbey hairpin. He's got the inside, given space at the start of it, but Elson sees he's clear, chops him off. And now Jason Perry is going to have to try again a little later. And our leader's in.
Yeah, watching Valeriano, excuse me, he's coming down to his box. On the brakes. Well, actually, not on the brakes quite yet. Seen Sadra right behind him. Long way down.
Murakami pits behind them. This is our leader. And there is our driver who was on the pole, Sven Demmel, coming down, and he's passed. And this is going to be very easy for him. Valeriano slots back into second. And there isn't as big as a gap as I expected. Let's see, once the timing and scoring evens itself out. Looks like about 2.5 seconds between them. Imagine how far ahead Sven would be if he hadn't have had that mistake.
I just cannot believe the times that Sven is still putting down.
So he didn't come back to the lead, although it will eventually cycle around to that, we believe. Jerry McAreevy is now your leader. He has yet to pit. We're waiting on him and Zach LeVay. Ian Wilson just comes in now.
And we do have our first retirement of the day. Miroslav Jurczyk is decided to call it an afternoon.
Yeah, seems like he was a little too far down. Didn't think he could catch anyone up. Meanwhile, Jerry McAreevy now comes in. That's going to hand it back to Sven Demmel. All right, so he was fighting with Perry before, and Perry now fighting with Elson, who actually managed to get by him while we weren't looking. What is this going to do? Because they were probably slowing each other up. McAreevy's already hit his pit stall. Perry's coming past the start-finish line now. McAreevy's going. Oh, this is going to be awful close. McAreevy's past the cones. He's accelerating away. There's going to be a little bit more momentum in favor of Perry, but not enough. And Jerry McAreevy is going to jump both Perry and Elson in the stops. Partly thanks to a very, very quick pit stop for the 67. Almost a second shorter than many of those around him.
And of course, whenever I see something like that, the first thing I have to think of, did he put enough fuel in? I mean, I'm sure he did, but I'm going to have that in the back of my head.
We've been hanging around soup too much.
I have.
8 minutes left to go. Real quick, I want to check in on our Spec 2 leader because we haven't given him a lot of love, but, well, he's not been doing a whole lot this race. Donald Fitterer sits in P7 overall, but he's got 10 seconds up to Elson and then 5 seconds back to Shaw. He's running in no man's land, and I'm sure he's happy that way. We lost a decent amount of our battles through those pit stops. Closest still between Perry and Elson. That's now for P5 since everybody has cycled through. Do have a little bit of one back here in the mid-pack. This is Murakami you see in the red and white. The yellow and red is Jim McGill. This is for 14th.
Yeah, they've been close to each other here, and no surprise, their pace has been about the same through practice, qualifying, and so no surprise they find each other here in the race. I mean, deep in the field, but still every little point counts as we get through the meat of the season.
Absolutely. We are looking at 21 finishers out of 22 starters, which is excellent. That's a pretty good rate of drivers finding their way to the finish. Jason Perry and Steve Elson have remained very close. Elson actually gave him a bump draft yet again on his way out of the cops' corner. They're going to lap Wobel one more time. He tries to stay out of their way. Oh, but Elson didn't feel confident tracking out. He went way shallow, and that was costly. Six minutes left to go now, and this is starting to look like this is Sven Demmel's race to lose. Last lap is a 34.5, this one a 34.4. Compare that to Brando behind him, crossing the line at a 35.5, 9/10 of a second faster.
There has been something that he has found to be able to continuously run those low lap times. There's nobody even close to him on the track right now. You know, that's just amazing to me, because he's going to have the oldest tires of the bunch now and everything else. Right, the car's a little bit lighter now, the fuel's starting to get a little lower, but his pace has just been incredible this entire race, cutting in and out of traffic to be able to make up that ground. Just incredible.
If Gaspers isn't watching right now, I hope one of his friends is getting on the phone and calling him up and saying, you need to tune in, because you might have some competition. I don't think we've seen anybody in a while with this kind of gap over the field. Granted, it's a smaller field today, but we know some of these drivers are not slow. Sadro is fast, McAreevy's fast, Perry tends to have incredible pace. So for Demmel to be dominating this in this fashion, I want to see he and Gaspers go head-to-head next round.
Well, we should talk him into sticking around for a while. Great series, you know. I mean, him and Valeriano here make fantastic additions, but I definitely think a few guys would be put on notice if they showed this kind of pace anywhere else.
Absolutely. Down to 4 minutes to go. That's your second place driver, Brando Valeriano. Started on the front row in second place. He's running P2 and really looks like he both can't catch our leader, but isn't too worried about the car at the final step of the podium, Daniel Sadro. Credit to Daniel. It's not been without its excitement today. He's had to fight a little bit for it as we ride on board one of the cars behind him. This is Elson. But Sadro basically working his way to another podium in the number 51. A number of the cars have done a good job at least keeping pace overall. We've still got 19 cars on the lead lap. That's about to become 18 as Bradwell gets lapped. Bob Kern now the last driver on the lead lap. So I'm kind of curious because we've watched Elson and Perry be close ever since the pit stops. Elson's just hanging behind him ever since Perry managed to get by. And I've seen him close up to the gearbox of Spider-Man, but Adam, do you think he's waiting for some last lap trickery, or do you think he's just struggling to stay up?
I don't know if he's necessarily struggling to stay up, but I don't know if he has the pace to get around him unless he ends up having to throw it in there. I mean, it's going to be tough, but we are also coming down to the end of the race. I mean, we're probably going to have this lap and then the white flag next time by for these guys, maybe. And we'll have to see. I mean, Elson has speed. I just don't know if he has enough to get around Perry.
That's where we're usually seeing him getting close, is right there, out of Copse towards the Maggots-Beckett sequence. And the rest of the lap, he starts to drop back a little. As they come through out towards the Abbey hairpin. He's staying with him this time. This is looking a lot better for Steve Elson. A bit of a defensive move from Jason Perry down into the hairpin. Elson looking to square off the corner, get the launch off of it. Doesn't quite totally work. It also doesn't lose him time. White flag coming out for Sven Demmel as he comes out of Woodcote to cross the start-finish line. He's gapped Brando now to 8 seconds. And that was with a 4-second deficit from his pit stop, coming in and missing his pit stall. Ooh, Elson now on the attack, though. So we've jumped back to 5th. Perry's having to go on the inside into Kopp's corner. Elson looking for the over-under. Tries to carry the speed. I'd say he's got a little bit, but how aggressive is he going to be? Perry's going to try to cover off the inside one more time. I don't know about trying to break too wide into this corner. This could be very sketchy, and Elson's the braver of the two at first. He manages to take the apex away. Perry tries to come back at him. Unfortunately, doesn't get the run he needs. We ride on board with Perry. Don't worry, I'm keeping an eye on the leader. I'll give a shout when he gets close to the start-finish line. Elson with a spectacular move on the final lap to get himself into the top 5, but can he hold on to it? He's a little wide at the hairpin. Could yet see more dives from Jason Perry. But we've got to step away from these two because Sven Demmel comes around Luffield up towards Woodcote. This has been an incredible show from the number 23, showing him how it's done. A victory today for Sven Demmel. Second goes to Valeriano. Third to Sadro. We're looking for 5th. McAreevy ahead of them, and 4th, and it's Steve Elson. What a move that was from him to grab this top 5. He holds Perry at bay.
Next battle coming out here is going to be P9. That's going to be Stevie Ray versus Ryan Sorrell. Ryan doing his best to maybe try an over-under here on Stevie Ray. Not sure he's going to be able to have the momentum. We are going to come down to the line here. Might not just be enough time until the start-finish line for Ryan to do anything here with Stevie. I think Stevie's going to come away with that 9th position here this afternoon. Ryan Sorrell round out the top 10.
Murakami leading the way ahead of McGill. This is for 13th. McGill a little wide, trying to use as much of the track as he can, but I don't think it's going to give him enough momentum. Murakami claims that P13 in the end. That's all of our battles, really, through the rest of the field. Bradshaw and Love going to be the last on the lead lap through. So as we take a look at Sven working his way around on a victory lap, we're going to go to break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. If you stick around on screen, you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Silverstone International Circuit. Well, we just watched round 4 in the Weekend Warriors, and Sven Demmel, newcomer, comes in and dominates. Despite having a slow pit stop, by the time the pits cycled around, his incredible pace gave him the lead back. Brandon Valeriano, who started in second, just had no answer for him, but ran a comfortable race to finish where he started. Daniel Sadro, same thing, from third to third. And then you go the same positions for Jerry McAreevy, even from fourth to fourth, but he had a lot more action, fighting quite a ways through this race. Steve Elson finished fifth, and he made a last lap pass to get by Jason Perry, who comes home P6. Then our Spec 2 winner, Donald Fitterer, coming home seventh overall. How about Michael Shaw, though? From 16th on the grid to finishing eighth. Stevie Ray takes a ninth today, and then rounding out our top 10 is Ryan Sorrell.
Another big mover gets into 11th position. Jeff Jacobson, he started 19th today. He's going to get up to 11th. Edward Doherty in 12th position. Chris McCamey in 13th position. Jim McGill, 14th. Zachary LeVay, 15th. Adam Bradshaw, 16th. C-Love and his problems in 17th. Bob Kern, Tom Gradwell, Gary Wolbalt, that'll be 18th, 19th, and 20th. And to round out the field here for today, Ian Wilson and then Miroslav Juracek ended up being the only true retiree here for today. So 21 cars finishing out of a total of 22.
And we've got the highest finisher of those 22 cars. That would be Sven Demmel. And Sven, I guess my first question is, have you ever raced against the likes of David Gaspers and Dimitri Houdaloudas?
Well, I raced against David. Well, thanks for having me first. But yeah, I raced against David this week and in previous seasons, but not that much because I mostly raced this car before he started to race it, like a few years ago. But yeah, I raced him twice this week and beat him there. But it seems not to be his best track, and I really have found what it takes to be quick here.
Have you ever? I mean, congratulations on the victory. You really astonished us with your pace around this track. When we saw you miss your pit stop, we thought for sure it would make it a challenge for the lead, but then you just started setting fastest lap after fastest lap.
Yeah, I was a little worried when I missed the pit stall and couldn't get it into the reverse gear. But yeah, I really got into a groove after that and finally found the pace. And I was pretty confident to be at least in the range of the lead and be able to fight for it. Then I got even a little gap and was able to win from that. Was obviously great for me.
Well, for a solid lower mid packer like me, would you be willing to at least share one small secret of the speed around here? Because that it seems like nobody can touch you. I'm curious, what is one of the tricks that you found?
I really don't know. I already answered that like in the forum when I got asked the same. I haven't driven this car in a while. Only just started again last week, so I don't know why I mean, I was always pretty quick, but why I'm that quick here, I can't tell you. I really don't know.
Well, I'd say that both Adam and I would be happy to have you back and would love to see you face off against Gaspers and some of the other fast drivers in the series. Again, congratulations. That was impressive.
Thanks.
That was Sven Demmel, our winner here today. And I believe we have third place finisher Sadro ready to talk to Adam.
Yeah, Daniel Sadro out there, podium finish here for today. Another good run for Mr. Sadro. Daniel, running the Silverstone International layout today, you were able to avoid the trouble and ran pretty much in the top four, I think, pretty much all day long. What was it like from the driver's seat this afternoon?
Well, it was certainly a lot of fun. You're kind of on the edge on the two corners that make up the international circuit. You've got that sharp right-hander, and then you've got the hairpin at Abbey. But it's very, very touch and go. You're always on the edge of your seat, and you're just trying not to crash. And had a great run. Had a good battle with Jerry. I was kind of hoping he'd catch us back up, and then he kind of went wide, and then it was me on my own.
Well, you're overall having a halfway decent season out there now. We're coming up into the middle part of the year, and are you going to be able to continue this pace that you've got going on? And are you going to be missing any races here coming up to allow those guys to catch up to you?
Well, I don't plan to miss any races. I'll probably be awful at Laguna Seca like I normally am, but you're
not the only one.
Oh, I know. But if Sven comes back and runs for the next few weeks, he's gonna stomp us all, I think.
And that does bring me to that next question about styles of tracks. I mean, you brought up Laguna Seca. Next up, we've got Lime Rock coming up, and so these shorter layout tracks that you're constantly having to work the wheel. You don't have much drafting help. Do you prefer these kind of tracks that we've seen, like Tsukuba last week, Silverstone this week, Lime Rock next week?
Oh, it's kind of hard to say because I like the variety. So I do kind of appreciate now that I'm a little faster. That I can get away and not get drafted from. So I guess Lime Rock's not going to be that much fun for me because people are just going to be able to stay with me all day. So we'll see. I enjoy the challenge, and I do really enjoy the variety of tracks we run.
Hey, well, Daniel, another good job here for today. Good to see you as always, and we'll catch you next week.
All right. Cheers, guys.
That was Daniel Sadro, our third place finisher here for today. And Joe's going to catch up with Donald Federer, who's just running away with those Spec 2 standings.
Yeah, a nicely earned 7th place for Donald today. But let's jump back to the very first lap. You got a little bit lucky. You were just ahead of all the chaos that we saw with cars flipping behind you. Did you catch any of that in your mirrors?
Joe, I completely missed that. I looked down at F3 and I said, golly, why are they so far behind me?
Well, do you think that helped you today a little bit of filling that gap in? Of course, with all the cars wrecking, do you think you still would have had pace to get 7th, even if that hadn't have happened behind you?
Well, it certainly made the race easier for me, Joe, because I typically can do, mid 135s, and I slowed her down. And it was just doing 136s because I didn't need to go any faster just to make sure I didn't wreck. So I certainly would have had to work harder.
So this week seems to be a little bit of low attendance, doesn't seem to be as popular of a track. But next week, we've got one of the base content tracks, Lime Rock Park. And with this being a base content car, I think I'm expecting a pretty large field. Do you think you fare pretty well dealing with those big traffic situations?
I do a lot of IMSA racing as well as the ILMS, so I'm in traffic quite a bit during the week, so I think I'll be fine.
Well, it'll be fascinating to see how many people turn up and see if you can continue to get these top 10s, maybe even top 5s, as we've seen from you a few times. Congratulations for the 7th today, and hope to see you over in Connecticut.
Thank you, Joe. Have a great evening.
As Donald Fitterer, our winner in the Spec 2 race today. And I think that is going to close us out. So let's thank a few people before we go. Another big thank you goes to Hallett Race Shop. If you want to check them out, go to hallettracing.net. So once again, we can't thank them enough for coming on board for the Weekend Warriors for this season. And a thank you goes out to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing eSports Network. If you want to subscribe to their channel, all you got to do is go to their their YouTube page and click on the big red button that says subscribe. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go out to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Adam, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also find us on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, we're heading over to Lime Rock Park for Sunday, April 14th. That'll be at 3:45 p.m. Eastern Don't miss that one, because if you thought there was excitement out there today, that one is going to be a stunner. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.